Jared here with carbuzz.com, and today, before the weather storms all over us, I am here with the 2019 Golf GTI Autobahn, the fully loaded trim. Now, the 7th generation Volkswagen Golf is almost at the end of its life cycle, but is it still the ultimate hot hatch on the market? That's what we're here to find out. But before we get it out on the road, be sure to click the link in the description below to get the best deals on the 2019 Golf GTI. Now let's go ahead and drive one of my favorite hot hatchbacks on the market. Now I'm in my happy place, which is behind the wheel of a 2019 Volkswagen GTI. I am always a very happy camper when I get to drive one of these, no matter what generation it is, except the 3rd generation. I'm not a big fan of those. So under the hood, we've got Volkswagen's 2.0 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. Nothing has changed here over the last couple of years. Produces 228 horsepower and 258 foot-pounds of torque. Those numbers have never been class leading in this segment, but remember, these are German horsepowers, so they are definitely a little bit more elevated than what you just see on the stat sheet. Trust me, 228 horsepower goes a really long way in this car because 0 to 60 takes just 5.7 seconds, and there are cars with a lot more power that still can't match the GTI's 0 to 60 time. And that's because we've got Volkswagen's excellent 6-speed DSG. That's what they call their dual clutch transmission. It's what you get instead of an automatic in a GTI. It loves being an automatic, like it shifts really smoothly. You never feel the gear changes, but then when you want to get a lick on, the gear changes are very quick and immediately, almost like a supercar. It is fantastic. Probably the best dual clutch transmission money can buy at this price point. And even though the GTI is very sporty, you're not going to suffer too bad on fuel economy. 25 mpg in the city, 30 on the highway, 27 mpg combined. I have been driving around for a few days now, and when I'm driving normally and not stopping at a lot of lights, I've been able to get this car to almost 35 mpg just around town. So this can definitely be more economical if you want it to be. We've got variable steering, which can change weights depending on drive modes. The steering is a lot lighter than something like my personal car, which is a Fiesta ST, but the steering is just so good. Volkswagen has just such a nice balance here. The car rides on the stiffer side of things. If you're used to driving like a Camry or an Accord, you might think this is a little firm, but we're in the top-loaded Autobahn trim, which means we have the DCC adaptive chassis control. That means we have the adaptive suspension, which will change its stiffness depending on the drive mode. I have it right now in its most comfortable setting, and I think it feels perfectly good. We've got ventilated disc brakes too on this trim. So now I'm going to come to a stop. I'm going to put it into one of its sportier modes. Let's go from Eco, Comfort, Normal. There we go. Sport. That automatically puts the transmission into its sport mode. This transmission has a separate sport mode that is different from all of the other drive modes. I'm going to turn off traction control, and that should allow me to do a launch control in this front-wheel drive car. So if I put my foot on the... There we go. Launch program active. Traction control definitely cut in there. I felt it break in power, but there we go. That was really good quick acceleration. I love the Volkswagen burble. I love the little DSG farts in this car. Very quick, drama-free acceleration, even with front-wheel drive. Now, this car in particular is a little expensive. We'll talk about that a little later. But if you do want all-wheel drive, your only option is going to be to opt for the Golf R, which ups the power to about 290 horsepower. Now, I've driven the Golf R, and I actually prefer the GTI to it because this car can be tuned so easily. If you haven't ever driven one of these newer Volkswagens on the MQB platform, these are one of the most tunable cars out there. With just a slight tune, you can easily get one of these over 250, 280, 300 horsepower, depending on what tier you want to go with a tuner like APR. Although it is worth noting, this car does have a 6-speed manual, but if you do want to tune it, the DSG is going to by far be your better option. And that's because the clutch that Volkswagen uses on that 6-speed manual just can't hold up to the abuse when you're running like 300 horsepower out of this car. And I have driven one of these cars with 300 horsepower going to the front wheels. It's a little bit too much in my opinion. I love the way this car feels stock, but again, if you want the tuning option, it is there for you. Now, Volkswagen has a clever, it's called the VAQ. It's their limited slip differential. It's going to come on all 2019 GTI models now, and I absolutely love it. It basically erases torque steer. As you saw when I did launch control, the wheel was not fighting me for grip or anything like that. So even though this is a front-wheel drive vehicle, it's not like what you remember if you've driven like an older front-wheel drive vehicle. This is one of the best front-wheel drive chassis ever made. Volkswagen has simply nailed it with this 7th generation Golf GTI. And 2019, I'm not sure when Volkswagen is going to start to phase out the MK7 Golf, because as we know, the 8th generation is quickly approaching. It's going to take a while before it gets over to the US, as most German cars tend to do. And we know we're not going to get the base Golf, only the GTI and the R, but it's going to be a while before this fades away. And I've driven a lot of cars recently where I say, you know, it's pretty good, but it's starting to show its age, and this car just isn't showing its age. There's so few competitors right now in this compact hot hatch segment. The Focus ST is going to be dying because Ford's killing off all their cars, leaving this, as it always was, as just the best in the class. I've often said that this is kind of like the Porsche 911 of hot hatchbacks. If you want to ask a journalist an opinion of what like quick hot hatch you should get, you're probably going to get GTI as an answer. And after driving this 2019 model, my opinion has not changed. This is still the ultimate all-round hot hatchback. It's fun to drive, comfortable, practical, and we're going to pull over now to talk about the interior, because even though the MK7 GTI has been around for a while now, it doesn't feel dated in here. In fact, it feels the exact opposite. Now that we've pulled over, let's check out the interior of the 2019 Golf GTI, which is one of the car's standout features. The Volkswagen Golf has always punched above its weight in terms of fit and finish. I think that if you told somebody that this was like a base Audi, they would definitely believe you. The Volkswagen Golf GTI has always been like a $30,000 car that feels like a $40,000 car inside, although with the price tag on this one, it's actually closer to that 40 number. Let's start with the gauge cluster, which is surprisingly lacking on this particular model. The gauges are classic white on black, nothing wrong there. Although I'm a bit disappointed that we were sent a fully loaded Autobahn GTI and it doesn't have Volkswagen's virtual display where this is all one screen and you can get your navigation and all sorts of other information up there. I know that you can get the feature on the Golf R, which is only a little bit more expensive than this. So yeah, I'm just really shocked that they didn't put it on here, because even the GLI Autobahn, which is far less expensive than this, also has that. So yeah, maybe 2020 model year, if there even is a 2020 model year, we'll get that. But as of right now, this is the only screen you can get. You do have a small helper screen where you can have it showing all sorts of different trip information. If I push this button, you can have it showing a lap timer, which, you know, some people will autocross this vehicle. You can have your vehicle status, your phone, audio, and navigation functions as well. So all of the crucial data is there. It's just a little bit smaller than it would be if this was all a touch or all a big massive digital display. Now the steering wheel itself is wonderful. It's a flat bottom wheel. GTIs have had that for a while now. We have the paddles on the back because of the 6-speed DSG transmission. You can also control the adaptive cruise control on it, but this is just such nice leather with red stitching. If you told me that if I found this steering wheel in an Audi or a BMW product, I would not be disappointed. And since this is the thing that you touch every time you get in the vehicle, I'm glad Volkswagen made it feel as premium as they have. Now let's check out the center stack, which is also fairly good. Because we're sitting in an Autobahn trim, we have Volkswagen's larger 8-inch touchscreen. It looks very clean, very minimal. Volkswagen hasn't gone for like a crazy wacky design, but as you can see, the touch response is really good. If I pull up my vehicle settings, I can have some cool things like this performance monitor where it's showing me PSI, my G, I can have it showing my engine kilowatts. And if you notice something interesting, so look at the bottom of the screen below that little red line. If I put my hand close to it, it gets bigger. So that also works with the radio, although I can't turn that on for copyright reasons. When you put your hand close to it, it has a proximity sensor that lives right here, so it senses when your hand gets closer, so it can minimize information that you don't need while you're driving. That's a very cool function. Because we have this high trim car, we do have navigation. I'd love to tell you how it works, although for some reason Volkswagen forgot to stick the SD card or whatever enables navigation on this car. Luckily, even if you don't get the Autobahn trim with the built-in navigation, there are some apps here. You will be able to use Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and MirrorLink on this system. You can plug that in via a USB port that's housed in this little storage area here. We've got dual zone automatic climate control that's very easy to use. We have our auto stop start control, traction control. Here are those drive modes that I was telling you about. You can switch between eco, comfort, normal, sport, and custom. If we go into adjust, you can see all of the things that we can adjust in comfort mode, in custom mode. We can adjust the suspension. The steering, you can have either sport or normal. I like sport, but I like the suspension to be comfortable. You can have the diff set to sport, the adaptive cruise control to sport. So yeah, there's the engine sound for the enhanced engine noise. I do like the way that sounds in sport mode. If I trigger the reversing camera, we do have a very clear image, although no trajectory, or at least moving trajectory. And what's cool is when you do throw it into reverse, the Volkswagen logo that is also the trunk release pops out to reveal the camera. And the thing that I love about this car is all of these materials are premium, soft touch. There's barely a cheap surface in here. The only thing that I've never liked about this particular display is that we have this black gloss trim, and you're going to get fingerprints and dust and all sorts of things on it. So that's the one thing I would change. And because we have the Autobahn trim, we do have some parking assistance. We have this button here that'll trigger your parking cameras, so you'll see like radars in the front or rear. No 360-degree camera, which would have been a nice addition, but if I push this button here, the car will actually parallel park itself, which is pretty darn cool. And again, if you don't need any of those features, you can save money by getting one of the lower trims. We also have Fender audio. That's right, the guitar maker actually made the radio in this car. It sounds fantastic, definitely on par with some of the systems you'll find in luxury cars. Now let's go ahead and check out the back seat, which is not quite as good as the Jetta GLI, but it is fairly comfortable back there. So back here, we've got 35.6 inches of rear legroom. I have the seat set to my normal driving position, and I'm not that tall, but I'm almost touching on my knees, so it's definitely not huge back here, but you do get a ton of headroom because of the Golf GTI's hatchback tall shape. Now, if you want more legroom, you'll find it in the Jetta GLI. Because that has a longer wheelbase, you do get more back seat space back here, although we do have rear air vents. I thought that's worth noting, that we do have rear air back here, so your passengers will be comfortable with that. And we do have this nice leather armrest with two basic cup holders, and you can get a rear pass-through here if you don't want to fold back all of the seats. Now let's go ahead and check out the practicality of the GTI's hatchback. So back here, the whole reason why you'll buy a GTI is practicality. That's the whole reason you get a hatchback over a sedan. Opening up the tailgate, you use the Volkswagen emblem. Oh, gotta love those Germans with their sense of humor. Love that. You get a little over 17 cubic feet of storage back here. If you fold down the seats, you'll have a little over 53 cubic feet of storage, which is very good in this segment, even though this is a little bit of an older car, so you can definitely fit large items back here if you fold down the rear seats. Now, the Jetta GLI, I think, has a little more cargo volume than this, but because of the hatchback body style, I think that the Golf is the more versatile of the two vehicles. You're going to want to opt for the Jetta GLI if you want more rear seat legroom, though, whereas the Golf GTI is the more practical all-rounder for hauling. Now it's time to price out our 2019 GTI, and this Autobahn trim that we've been driving here is very, very expensive. Time to price out our 2019 Volkswagen Golf GTI Autobahn. The two-door GTI is no more, so you can only get a four-door model available in four different trims. The base S trim is going to start out at $27,595. You're going to get the drive mode selection with the different sport and eco modes. You're going to get that VAQ limited slip differential that I mentioned, and you're going to get a smaller screen than what we had here on our tester, although it will still have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Next is the Rabbit Edition. This is the one that I recommend the most. It plays on the nostalgia while keeping the price low, but giving you some added features. It starts at $28,895, but it adds in LED headlights. You get upgraded plaid cloth seats, which are a Volkswagen, they are great. Keyless access with push-button start, ambient lighting, special Rabbit badging, and heated seats. The SE trim, that one's $31,795. That one's also pretty nice. You get the larger 8-inch touchscreen, panoramic, sunroof, leather seats, adaptive lighting, and 18-inch wheels. I just prefer the plaid cloth because it just looks so cool and it's a little bit more breathable. The car we've been driving is the Autobahn. $35,995 to start, $1,100 more to upgrade to the DSG, bringing the as-tested price to $37,990, almost 40 grand for this GTI. But you do get adaptive cruise control, dual zone automatic climate control, navigation, parking assist, and rain sensing wipers. Now the problem is at almost $38,000, this car almost costs as much as a base Golf R at $40,395, and the fully loaded Jetta GLI Autobahn tops out at less than $30,000, making it the far better value play. Now, the GLI does not have as nice of an interior. It definitely isn't quite as sporty. You don't get the aggressive bolstered seats that you get in this car, and it's definitely built to a price, but you do get Volkswagen's virtual cockpit display, which you cannot get in a GTI, only on the Golf R. So if value is your number one concern, I would say the GLI is the better value over the GTI, but the one that I most recommend is the Rabbit Edition. Time to sum up my time with the 2019 Golf GTI. Even though this car is getting on a bit in age, I don't think it has lost a step whatsoever. I do think this example that Volkswagen sent me is way too expensive. I would easily opt for one of those lower trims like that cool Rabbit Edition that I mentioned, or if you're really seeking the best value, maybe go for the Jetta GLI, which is a lot less expensive, but don't let that dissuade you from getting a Golf GTI. This is still one of, if not one of the best cars on sale in 2019, making it an easy must buy for me. And if you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, be sure to subscribe to the CarBuzz YouTube channel and download our apps on iOS and Android to be up to date with all of the latest and greatest in automotive news. And be sure to hit that notification bell. That's the only way YouTube's going to alert you of our latest videos. Hope you've enjoyed this one. See you next time.